Hey man, let's talk about something that separates the boys from the men. Something most guys will never understand. The difference between being just another face in the crowd and being the guy who actually stands out. See, there's a massive gap between thinking you're special and actually being the man who commands respect, who gets noticed, who makes things happen. And listen, this isn't about arrogance. This isn't about putting on a show. This is about recognizing the qualities that make you genuinely different from 90% of the men out there. Today, we're breaking down 8 undeniable signs that prove you're not just another guy. You're the man who stands out. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll know exactly where you stand. And more importantly, you'll understand why some men naturally rise above while others fade into the background. Let's dive in. The first sign is that you make decisions fast and stick to them. Here's something most men struggle with. They overthink everything. They analyze every option, they ask for everyone's opinion, and by the time they finally decide, the moment's already passed. But you're different. When a decision needs to be made, you gather the facts, you trust your gut, and you move. That's power. That's leadership. I'm not talking about being reckless. I'm talking about having the confidence to make calls when it matters. Think about it. How many times have you been in a group where everyone's standing around trying to figure out where to eat, what to do next, and nothing gets decided because everyone's afraid of making the wrong choice? But then there's always that one guy who steps up and says, "All right, here's what we're doing. Follow me." That guy commands respect because he's willing to take responsibility for the outcome. Women notice this instantly. They don't want a man who asks them what they want to do every single time. They want a man who can take charge, who can make plans, who can lead. And here's the thing, even if the decision doesn't work out perfectly, the fact that you made it confidently earns you more respect than the guy who spent an hour deliberating and still couldn't choose. So if you're the type of man who can cut through the noise, make decisions quickly, and own the results, you're already ahead of most men out there. The second sign is that you don't need validation from others. This one's huge, and it's something that immediately separates you from the pack. Most men are constantly seeking approval. They need others to tell them they're doing well, they're funny, they're attractive, they're successful. But not you. You know your worth, and you don't need anyone else to confirm it for you. You see, validation seeking is like a drug. The more you need it, the weaker you become. You start changing who you are based on what gets you likes, what gets you attention, what gets you approval. But when you stop needing that validation, something powerful happens. You become authentic. You become magnetic because people can sense when someone is genuinely comfortable in their own skin. Women especially pick up on this instantly. If you're constantly checking your phone for likes, posting everything you do, trying to impress people with your lifestyle, she sees right through it. But if you're the type of man who can put his phone down, engage in real conversation, and be present without needing to broadcast it to the world, that's attractive. That's confidence. And here's what's interesting. When you stop seeking validation, you actually start getting more of it naturally. Because people are drawn to authenticity. They're drawn to someone who doesn't need their approval to feel good about themselves. The third sign is that you have standards and you enforce them. Listen, most men are so desperate for attention, for companionship, for acceptance, that they'll compromise on everything. They'll tolerate disrespect. They'll lower their standards. They'll accept behavior that they know isn't right just to avoid being alone. But you're different. You know what you will and won't accept. And you're not afraid to walk away when those lines get crossed. Having standards isn't about being difficult or demanding. It's about respecting yourself enough to know what you deserve. And here's the truth. When you have standards and you enforce them, people respect you more, not less. They see that you value yourself, and that makes them value you too. Think about it. Would you rather deal with someone who lets you get away with anything, or someone who expects the best from you and holds you accountable? The second person earns respect because they demonstrate self-respect. And women? They test this constantly. They want to see if you'll stick to your principles when it gets uncomfortable. They want to know if you're the type of man who will compromise his values just to keep her happy. If you pass that test, if you show that you have non-negotiables, you become incredibly attractive because you prove that you're not desperate, you're selective. The fourth sign is that you're comfortable with conflict. This is where most men fail. They avoid confrontation at all costs. They'd rather keep the peace than address problems. They think being agreeable makes them likable. But here's the truth. Conflict is inevitable, and how you handle it reveals everything about your character. Now, I'm not saying you should go around picking fights. But when conflict arises, when difficult conversations need to happen, when someone crosses a line, you don't back down. You address it directly, you speak your truth, and you handle it like a man. Most guys, they either explode with emotion or they shut down completely. Neither approach works. Being comfortable with conflict means you can disagree without being disagreeable. You can stand your ground without being aggressive. You can have difficult conversations without losing your cool. And that's incredibly powerful because it shows emotional maturity. It shows that you're not controlled by fear or anxiety. You're controlled by principle. Women find this incredibly attractive because they know that if issues come up in the relationship, you'll address them head-on instead of letting them fester. You won't avoid the hard conversations, and you won't just tell them what they want to hear. You'll tell them what they need to hear, even when it's uncomfortable. The fifth sign is that you invest in yourself relentlessly. Here's something that separates the men who stand out from those who fade into the background. You never stop growing. You never stop improving. You never stop investing in yourself. Whether it's your body, your mind, your skills, your career, you're always working to become better. Most men plateau. They get comfortable, they stop pushing themselves, they stop learning, they stop growing. But not you. You understand that personal development isn't a destination, it's a journey. You hit the gym not just to look good, but to build discipline. You read not just for entertainment, but to expand your mind. You develop skills not just for your job, but for your life. And here's what happens when you're constantly investing in yourself. You become more interesting. You have more to offer. You become the type of person that others want to be around because you're always evolving, always improving, always bringing something new to the table. Women notice this instantly. They can tell when a man is stagnant versus when he's growing. And growth is incredibly attractive, but it's not just about external improvements. It's about internal work too. You work on your mindset, your emotional intelligence, your ability to handle stress and pressure. You understand that becoming the best version of yourself is the most important work you can do. And that commitment to growth, that's what sets you apart. The sixth sign is that you lead by example, not by words. Anyone can talk a good game. Anyone can tell people what they should do. Anyone can give advice. But leading by example? That's rare. That's powerful. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. When you believe in something, you live it. When you expect something from others, you demonstrate it yourself first. Most men are all talk. They'll tell you about their big plans, their goals, their ambitions. But when it comes time to execute, they fall short. They make excuses. They find reasons why it's not the right time. But you let your actions speak for you. You don't just talk about discipline, you show up every day. You don't just talk about integrity, you do the right thing even when no one's watching. This is incredibly powerful because people trust actions more than words. They've heard too many promises that weren't kept, too many claims that weren't backed up. But when they see someone consistently following through, consistently doing what they say they're going to do, that builds real respect, real credibility. And women? They pay attention to this more than anything else. They don't just listen to what you say, they watch what you do. They notice if you're reliable, if you're consistent, if you're a man of your word. Because actions reveal character, and character is what matters in the long run. The seventh sign is that you're selective with your time and energy. Here's something most men get wrong. They think being busy makes them important. They think saying yes to everything makes them valuable. They think being available 24/7 makes them a good friend, a good partner, a good person. But that's not how it works. Your time and energy are your most valuable resources. And how you spend them determines the quality of your life. When you're selective, when you protect your time, when you choose carefully how you invest your energy, you're showing that you understand your own value. You're showing that you're not desperate for approval or acceptance. This means saying no to things that don't align with your goals. No to people who drain your energy. No to activities that don't add value to your life. And yes, this can be uncomfortable at first because most people are used to others always being available, always saying yes. But when you start being selective, something powerful happens. People start respecting your time more. They start valuing your presence more because they know it's not guaranteed. They know you chose to be there. They know you're not just filling time, you're investing it intentionally. And women find this incredibly attractive because it shows that you have purpose, that you have direction, that you're not just drifting through life. The eighth and final sign is that you handle success and failure the same way. This might be the most important sign of all. How you handle both success and failure reveals everything about your character. Most men? They get cocky when things go well and they crumble when things go badly. But you? You stay level. You stay grounded. You stay focused regardless of the outcome. When you succeed, you don't let it go to your head. You know that success is temporary, that it requires constant effort to maintain. You celebrate, but you don't get comfortable. You appreciate, but you don't get arrogant. You use success as fuel to keep going, not as an excuse to coast. And when you fail, because you will fail, everyone does, you don't fall apart. You don't make excuses. You don't blame everyone else. You take responsibility. You learn from it. You adjust your approach, and you keep moving forward. Failure doesn't define you. It refines you. It makes you stronger. It makes you wiser. It makes you better. This emotional stability, this mental toughness, this is what separates the men who stand out from those who don't. Anyone can handle things when they're going well. But it takes real character to handle adversity with grace, to stay focused when everything's falling apart, to keep pushing when others would quit. Women notice this more than anything else. They want to know that you can handle pressure, that you won't crumble under stress, that you won't fall apart when life gets difficult. Because life will get difficult, and they need to know that you're the type of man who can weather the storm. Now here's the thing about standing out. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the right mindset, the right approach, the right character traits that make you different from the majority of men out there. Most men are followers. They wait for someone else to make the first move. They seek approval. They avoid conflict. They make excuses. They compromise their standards. They stop growing. They lead with words instead of actions. They waste their time and energy, and they let circumstances control their emotions. But you're different. You make decisions. You validate yourself. You have standards. You handle conflict. You invest in yourself. You lead by example. You're selective with your resources, and you stay level regardless of what happens. That's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you memorable. That's what makes you the type of man that others look up to. And here's what happens when you embody these qualities. People start treating you differently. They start showing you more respect. They start seeking your opinion, your advice, your leadership. Women start noticing you, not because you're trying to get their attention, but because you naturally command it. Opportunities start presenting themselves because people want to be associated with someone who has their act together, someone who stands out, someone who leads by example. Your relationships improve because you're not settling for less than you deserve. Your career advances because you're the type of person that others want to work with. But most importantly, you feel different about yourself. You wake up with confidence knowing that you're living according to your values, that you're not compromising, that you're not settling, that you're constantly becoming the best version of yourself. And that internal confidence, that self-respect, that's what really makes you stand out. Look, man, standing out isn't about being the loudest guy in the room. It's not about showing off. It's not about putting others down to build yourself up. It's about having the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going. It's about being the type of man that others respect, admire, and want to follow. So take a look at these 8 signs. Be honest with yourself. Where do you stand? Are you the man who makes decisions, or the one who waits for others to choose? Are you seeking validation, or are you confident in your own worth? Do you have standards, or do you compromise to avoid conflict? Do you invest in yourself, or have you stopped growing? Here's the truth. You already have everything you need to be the man who stands out. It's not about what you have. It's about who you are. It's about your mindset, your character, your approach to life. And the beautiful thing is, you can start developing these qualities right now. Today. This moment. Start making decisions faster. Start validating yourself. Start enforcing your standards. Start embracing conflict when it's necessary. Start investing in your growth. Start leading by example. Start being selective with your time, and start handling both success and failure with the same level-headed approach. Because here's what I know about you. If you're listening to this, if you're thinking about these concepts, if you're willing to look at yourself honestly and work on becoming better, you already have the foundation. You already have the desire. You already have what it takes to be the man who stands out. The question isn't whether you can do it. The question is whether you will do it. Whether you'll commit to becoming the best version of yourself. Whether you'll do the hard work of developing these qualities, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's challenging, even when others don't understand. Because standing out isn't easy. If it was, everyone would do it. It requires discipline. It requires commitment. It requires the willingness to be different from the majority of men who are content with being average, who are satisfied with blending in, who are okay with being forgettable. But you? You're not average. You're not content with blending in. You're not okay with being forgettable. You want more. You deserve more. And you're willing to do what it takes to get it. So start today. Start now. Start with one of these qualities and commit to developing it fully. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better than you were yesterday. You just have to be committed to growth, to improvement, to becoming the type of man that others look up to, respect, and admire. The type of man who naturally stands out, not because he's trying to, but because he's earned it. And when you start embodying these qualities, when you start living according to these principles, when you start being the man who stands out, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your opportunities change. Your entire life changes because you change. And that's the power of being the man who stands out. So my question for you is this. What are you going to do with this information? Are you going to listen to this, forget about it, and go back to being average? Or are you going to use it as a wake-up call, as motivation, as a blueprint for becoming the man you're capable of being? The choice is yours, but choose wisely, because your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. Standing out isn't about luck. It's not about circumstances. It's not about what you were born with. It's about what you do with what you have. It's about the choices you make, the habits you develop, the character you build, and the man you become. So make the choice. Be the man who stands out. Because the world needs more men like that, and deep down, you know you're capable of being one of them.